Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call to order for our PED Paddle and Pedal Committee. Welcome to everyone today. You have the agenda in front of you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Who is that?
Mark
Is there a
Odell.
second?
Mark
Yes,
Odell
Mark
makes
Odell.
the motion.
Mark.
Who makes a second?
Gary Swetzel, second.
Thank you, Gary. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Discussion. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand.
Opposed? And raise your hand, right? We're not going to do a roll call for that. Okay, motion carries. All right, we'll proceed to PED.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I like to do is talk a little bit about, there are a couple items here of update. I've been telling you for quite a while now about the fact that we're going to do a bike map app, an application working with My City Bikes. It's been a bit of an odyssey because everything was going well. And then we decided, hey, let's bring more people into the party. And so we brought Northeast Illinois, well, the south suburbs of Chicago. And so with that said, we were able to combine the application working with My City Bikes and working through the Calumet Collaborative. Of course, when you expand the regional scope of a product, doubling its geographic footprint, it's going to cause a bit of delay. And we are at the point now where we're doing finally the final touches on it. And we're hoping to have it go live even as early as this month. And then there'll be some other options that we talk about later that our entities would be able to add on to the map, including like maybe business district identification and trail tours. Now, these are going to be additions that are, you're going to have to pay for those. We won't, but you'll have the ability to do that and work within a template that is provided by the contractor here, which is My City Bikes. But the actual base map itself is what we're dealing with and what we're paying for at NERPC and with the federal funds that we've ascribed to this project. So that's where we're at. I know that people have been asking me left and right about when this is going to go online. And so that's the latest. It's just something that's taking its sweet time. There has been some conflict between the data we're sending and the data that they're producing. But slowly but surely, we're coming to the end of this base map development. So I'll entertain any questions on the map app.
Questions for Mitch?
And I do, yeah. And I do want to interject too that we have plenty of bike maps available at NERPC offices. Of course, we're not there all the time, but most people are, like Meredith. So if you're on the call and you need more bike maps, I ask that you please contact Meredith Stillwell in our office. You can email me too, and I could pass it along to her. But she's in the office from 8 to 1, Monday through Friday, most of the time. And so she could be there to meet you and give you 1 or 2 or 5 boxes of maps. There's 200 per box if you are still in need of the paper maps. And we'll probably not do another run of paper maps for a bit of time here, probably not till at this point 2024, because we released the map kind of late in the game here. Of course, we can blame COVID, but yeah. So that's the issue on the maps. So if I'm not hearing any questions, I'll just dive into the next item under PED. It's simply an informational webinar by America Walks. Many different advocate groups are out there for walking, for bicycling, for trail development. America Walks is a national organization, and they do have webinars once in a while. One of them that is of interest is harmful jaywalking in BIPOC communities. And those are communities, usually minority communities, low income communities. And there is an issue about jaywalking there, and sometimes the issue is enforcement. Sometimes the enforcement is a lot heavier in those communities, and of course those communities usually suffer from a lack of good infrastructure for bike and pedestrian, and so they're suffering inappropriately or inordinately compared to other communities that have good infrastructure. So there's a disconnect going on there. We do have several areas, environmental justice communities in our region that this webinar could be of service to, and hopefully you can take part. It's a free webinar, so that's the link right there on the agenda. So we did send out the agenda, and there is a way to click on that directly and register. So that's all I have under PED right now, Mr. Chairman.
Right. If there are no further questions from PED, let's move on to PEDAL.
Okay, the first one up would be an update from South Shore Trails. Is anybody on to update us from the group? No Don Parker? Uh-oh. Yep.
Do you have an update for South Shore Trails?
I wish I could. No, I don't have an update at this time for the group.
We'll have a report next time.
Yes, sir.
Deanna's Year of the Trails, Brian.
Yeah, let me introduce Brian. Brian, while you're setting up and sharing the screen, I will say that Brian is with the Rails to Trails Conservancy. He can tell you what his title is, but he has some exciting news regarding Year of the Trails and what Rails to Trails Conservancy will be doing here in the state over the next year. Brian, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, guys. So, I'm kind of sharing, in case you didn't know, Mitch is also got a side hustle as a graphic designer. And so, but this is the banner that we, and logo that we launched, I guess a week and a half ago at the Trails Gathering. I will say, my part being couched in pedal is maybe not the most appropriate, because Year of the Trails is about hiking, biking, multi-use trails, equestrian, and I was thinking that maybe you guys could add like another P. It maybe is like prodding your horse or something. But anyway, Year of the Trails is for like all non-motorized trail use. And, so the exciting thing is in April, our legislature, directed by the Indiana Legislative Trails Caucus, made 2021-2022 the Year of the Trails. Our current thinking is that the October 23rd kickoff, and I'll mention more about that, is the beginning. And that, the Year of the Trails basically happens, from October to October. There are a lot of great opportunities in the spring and summer, including, National Trails Day and whatever, to, really elevate this. And we're very excited. I think some of you guys, I'm sure, have heard about Representative Carrie Hamilton, who's our lead co-chair for the Trails Caucus. Very excited about this. We currently, for October 23rd, have 3 signature events. One's on the nickel plate. So Carrie Hamilton will be there, as will our Rails to Trails Midwest Regional Director, Eric Oberg. I'm going to be in Fort Wayne, where they're going to be planting trees. We also have an event that's happening along the Cardinal Greenway. And we've got one of our guys, Ken Bryan, that's going to be there. So I guess a couple things. One is, and I had hoped that we would have the toolkit together, but it's probably going to be coming out on Tuesday. So after Indigenous Peoples Day, which is a holiday for many of us. That will include banners, social media, like whatnot. We are encouraging folks to have events on the 23rd, but keeping in mind that, we've now got a year to celebrate Year of the Trails. We're going to share like all these things like the banner and whatnot. And I will say Rails to Trails also has some funding. So if anyone wants to have an event on the 23rd or thereafter, we can help you with that. I guess otherwise, these events are going to be about, getting local elected officials, state elected officials, and other leaders to talk about the trails, talk about what our legislative agenda in Indiana is about, which, Mitch's other hat is with the Greenways Foundation. There's been some great thoughts around maintenance and building out the visionary trails plan for Indiana. The Great American Rail Trail is a critical piece that's going to make a big difference for the Hoosier State. And so there are a lot of cool things to elevate. But anyway, we want to celebrate this because now that we have this political will around, supporting trails, I think it's incumbent on us to carry that torch. So probably enough from me. Happy to answer any questions, but we will make sure to share that toolkit with everyone early next week.
Thank you, Brian. Great.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Brian. And let me again reemphasize here the fact that the Indiana State Legislature, through the work of the Trails Caucus, did announce a Year of the Trails, and so they did their part. They signed the proclamation that was signed by the governor, and then now we're getting around to having events to celebrate that, and those will commence this month on October 23rd. As Brian was mentioning, we're hoping to get a series of events happening throughout the state, and hopefully a number of them here in Northwest Indiana. Rails to Trails Conservancy can help out with a few shekels, and they are going to put a toolkit together, as Brian had mentioned, to help communities aid with their planning of such events. I think you already mentioned several events, I think, happening throughout the state on that day. So hopefully I'm going to be able to share this with communities directly and work with park directors and other trail managers directly on this in this region, and hopefully a few, if not many, will take that initiative and plan events in their communities to kind of celebrate this year-long celebration of trails. So with that said, yes, any questions for Brian or for myself on this matter from the group? And don't forget, you might be on mute.
Right. Doesn't seem to be, but Brian and Mitch are always available offline if something comes up, and if you deem it worthy, share it with the rest of the committee, gentlemen. Okay, let's proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I did get Mr. Parker has joined us, and so Don, did you want to have a South Shore Trails update? And Don, you might be on mute.
Yeah, no, sorry.
That's okay.
No, nothing right now. Thanks.
Oh, that's anticlimactic. Okay, very good.
Well, ask me later then. Sorry, I'm in the middle of something at the library right now. So
no worries. Thanks for joining us. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk about some work with. Hopefully I can get this here. Give me a minute. Oh, there it is. So I'm going to dive into the funding out there that is floating around in the state and circles. You should see the state program here. So just to kind of clear up what's happening statewide and nationwide regarding funding, because we're all very curious about that. The big one around the corner in the state of Indiana is Next Level Trails, which you can see here on the DNR webpage. the DNR page here, the Next Level Trails page, gives you all the information necessary about the grant itself. And so what we have here is round 3 commencing on November 1st, my birthday. So there's my birthday gift to everybody, some state money. Anyway, the applications are due to the DNR on December 1st. So the applications have not been distributed yet. They will be with, a couple weeks from now. And they're going to be putting out there about $35 million. And that is broken up into 2 flavors. You have a $25 million pot for regional projects, and that is a $5 million ask limit. So that's some pretty big money. And then the $10 million for local projects was a $2 million ceiling, which is still a pretty good amount of money for local projects. I know DNR has already had kind of a workshop on this recently. You're more than happy to ask me questions, but I will always push you to the DNR so you can present to them your ideas to make sure that right off the bat, they'll give you a thumbs up or down about your proposal. I just had a discussion with a group in LaPorte County regarding the Lincoln Trail today, regarding their proposed route. And I said, Next Level Trails might be able to help you finish it. So why don't you go talk to them? So if you have anything in mind regarding Next Level Trails or any projects that could qualify, I would highly encourage you to apply, or at least give them a call to talk it over, because this is fast money. This is state money. There are no federal strings attached to this money. And I know many people on the call know that's a breath of fresh air. In fact, several projects that were only funded a couple years back have already been completed. So that'll tell you how nice this money is to work with. So hopefully we'll have some more success. We've received several projects in this region based on the last 2 rounds, and we're hoping to continue that success going forward. So that's Next Level Trails. And I'm going to move on to the other big ticket item that's floating around here, and I want to make sure people understand what's happening. Some sausage making news for you from the federal government. This is called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And so this is the latest appropriation bill for the transportation projects around the country. This is, I think, the great grand bill of the Ice-T legislation that was passed back in 1991, which helped get trails prioritized and mandated for funding and development throughout the country. And I think thanks to that act of Ice-T, we have over 25,000 miles of trail built through federal investments. So just an amazing landmark legislation, and it put us straight and focused into the golden age of trail development that we're still enjoying. We might even be in the diamond age from all I know with Next Level Trails going on. But what I wanted to clear up the air, because people are hearing a whole bunch of stuff about, we have the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we have the reconciliation bill, and these are 2 different animals that are being talked about at Congress right now. The one that I have a lot of interest in, and we all have a lot of interest in at NERPC, is this one, because this will help fund our programs and help continue providing key investments here throughout Northwest Indiana. It'll actually provide more money to us for all the programs that we have attributable to our to our MPO. That includes our STBG, our CMAC, all the federal acronyms, the 5307, transit, everything gets kicked up a notch because of this. It's kind of hard to read there, but this is about $944 billion in total spending, which, keep in mind, I think the last bill that was passed, which is what we're under, the FAST Act, again, acronyms, I think that came in about $600 or $700 million. And it's a 5-year bill, or a 5-year bill. And that's what they're going to be spending throughout the country in that 5-year period. So again, it's great. There are some innovative funding avenues created, or instruments created, for non-motorized transportation and safer streets. We have a program called Vision Zero, which is starting to blossom throughout the country. You always hear these new phrases coming up, like complete streets or safe routes to school, which I'll talk about later in this meeting. But Vision Zero is exactly as it sounds, policies that communities and regions can employ to bring the death rate down to zero of bike and pedestrian crashes. Obviously, that's the goal we want. We want everyone to be safe. We do not want to see fatalities or even injuries on our network, in a perfect world, obviously, but we want to at least employ policies and good development strategies to bring that number as far down as we possibly can, wherever we can. And so there'll be money dedicated for those programs and for those type of improvements on our roadways to make our streets safer for bike and peds. So obviously great news there. They're employing that in this infrastructure bill. So keep that in mind. That's what we have going on. And I believe the latest politicking about it is that the Senate passed this bill. The Senate passed this bill where, there's a lot of contention in the Senate, but they had this bipartisan agreement. They passed this bill. It's in the House, but the House is wanting to pass this along with that reconciliation, that $3.5 trillion bill that's out there. They want to pass them together. So that's what they're having a lot of back and forth with. And in the middle of it, the debt ceiling is coming up. So I mean, if you're a C-SPAN junkie, this is all candy for you, but for those that are just kind of get recoiled by the processes of Washington, yeah, it can be a bit of a headache and hard to keep up with. But that's what's the deal. The Democrats want to have it all passed at once, and so hopefully we can get an agreement on this and we can kick it off and have all this new funding available for all these programs that I had spoken about. So that's just an update, the state and federal level that I know of right now, and I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that people may have on them. Or you're thoroughly confused or just disgusted and don't want to talk to me about it. I wouldn't blame either. Okay. So I think it's all yours, Andrew. You're on mute.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
You bet. Let me get the agenda back up here, if you don't mind. Okay, the next topic would be, yes, let me do the introduction here. So our feature presentation is David Wright, and he'll talk to us now about the great work he's doing with some tactical urbanism. And GPTC has really been on the head of the curve, very progressive on many areas here. And this is just another exciting program that they're working on. And David continuing to lead the way for good, solid planning in our region. So it is my honor to introduce David. It's all yours.
All right, thank you very much. Happy Division Series Day.
Yes, thank you.
I'm wearing my Tigers cap because we're going to be on y'all next year.
Well,
okay,
I'll take that as a challenge. You had a good second half of the year.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Okay, so I guess I should hit the share screen button now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's all yours.
All right. Just 1 second. All right. Can you see the presentation now? All right. Perfect.
We can see the PowerPoint. We don't have the presentation yet. There we go.
Okay, there we go. We are about maybe 5 or 6 days into a call for artists for a portion of our downtown Gary tactical urbanism project, which is something that actually had a lot of input from NERC and the city of Gary and several other organizations. So this is just a breakdown on what's going on, what this is, and where we're hoping to take it. Hold on. There we go. All right. First, an introduction and a definition. Tactical urbanism is an approach to neighborhood building using short-term, low-cost, scalable interventions. What we're trying to do here in Northwest Indiana is do something more on the low cost and scalable, as opposed to the short-term. There are several short-term tac urb projects going on in both Gary and Northwest Indiana, but we're trying to get something that's going to at least last a few years with this project here. A couple of examples. First of all, you may not know it, but you probably saw tactical urbanism in action in DC last year. On the right, Black Lives Matter Plaza, which is in DC, which is pretty much a flash a streetscaping project. That's tactical urbanism. That is a project that was pretty quick, that was made and embraced by the city itself. But that's a great, maybe the most famous example of tactical urbanism in the country right now. One image that we used in our call for project for artists is from the Tactical Urbanism workshop in Florida. And we're not going to get anything that pretty here in the Midwest, period. But I wanted to show just what the potential was for projects like this. We're probably going to be ending up with something similar to what's from Baltimore, Maryland, which is Curbside Commons, which basically is a prettified crosswalk. Other examples, more locally, the same program that we're getting funding from was used in Fort Wayne a few years back for their better block improvements, which included parklets. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a bike or I think that is a bike trail right there that was done by community members. And two projects going on right now south of here on I-65 are two sets of wayfinding projects being spearheaded by Health by Design, which is an active transportation group. They are doing wayfinding signage in two areas on the northeast side of Indianapolis. One of them is Frederick Douglass Park, basically connecting the park itself to nearby activity centers and also providing people with some fitness guidelines in terms of mileage and steps. For those who haven't been downtown in a minute, just a little bit of primer on what's forming and shaping the environment here downtown, in downtown Gary. Over the past maybe 10 or 15 years, there has been a decent amount of residential development here downtown, starting with the Horseman Apartments, which is on the left of the screen here. That is a set of townhomes built just west of Broadway and just south of Fifth Avenue. That's pretty much at full occupancy, and after 10, 15 years, still looks great. The Dalton Arms Apartments were one of the biggest historic preservation projects that I've seen in my lifetime, and it's thriving. It just changed ownership. The group that owns it now is out of Flint, Michigan. They've done a lot of great community development projects in the Midwest. Thirdly, the Broadway Lofts on the lower right corner of that map. It's in the construction phase now. It's deep in the construction phase now, as a matter of fact. But it is pretty much the most significant transit-oriented development project since IU Northwest and Ivy Tech built the Arts and Sciences building. Their front doors are going to be literally yards from transit stops. And they were nice enough, not even at our request, to put a bus in their conceptual plan just to indicate how transit-friendly the development is going to be. As a matter of fact, just a quick aside, we are working on a deal with them to provide bus passes at a discount to the residents of that building once it opens later on this year. We're in the formative stages of that, but we've got pretty much a verbal agreement on how we want to do that for the next few years. Other things that are going on downtown, educational facilities. 21st Century Charter School pretty much has made downtown their learning lab. They've got an elementary school at 6th and Washington. They've got a junior high school at 8th and Washington, and they actually rent out a portion of the Dalton Arms Apartments for the Gary Middle College, which is basically a bridge program between high school and early college. I think it's a program in conjunction with Ivy Tech, and they've got actually several different campuses of Gary Middle College in Gary and maybe even in Hammond as well. A bit more about the artistic environment here downtown. There's been a lot of great street art and sculptures constructed and installed downtown. You got the Hatcher statue right there, which was built a couple of years ago. No, I think last year. You've got I think that's I forget who did the artwork right there at our Fifth Avenue BMX stop, which was curated and paid for by the Legacy Foundation, as well as some of the other artwork underneath the toll road overpasses and at Union Station, which is basically now an artist palette. So you've got a lot of energy downtown and no connectivity, which is one of the things that we're trying to affect here. A bit more about what we're doing on the Broadway corridor. We launched a BMX 3 years ago. It was the state's first rapid bus system. We preceded the Red Line by about a year or so. We saw a 30% increase in ridership after that first year. Of course, COVID killed everything in terms of transit ridership, and everybody in the industry will tell you that. It's got low impact, accessible solar lit stations between here and the Lake County Government Center in Crown Point. We launched the route with a technological advance where we started providing mobile passes, and they actually now account for about 10 to 15% of our boardings. We were expecting 2%, so it has been embraced. We've gone beyond that recently by launching trip planning apps, both on our website and on apps like Google, Move It, and Transit. And we've already got a history of art on the route where we actually had shelter art all the way down into Maryville. And next year, probably sometime in the summer, we will be launching, turning that route into an all-electric bus route. All right. As I mentioned earlier, there are some issues here downtown, obviously. I mean, we're not just talking about the vacant structures that are being removed, but still replaced with nothing but vacant land. We've got some first mile, last mile issues at our generators. We've got crumbling sidewalks that a walk audit performed by NERC and the US DOT a few years ago identified. And there are areas like here at 900 Broadway with no crosswalks. This is a major street, the city's heart, a lifeline, the city's main artery. And because of these two streets are T intersections, there are no crosswalks crossing Broadway at the 900 block, which has two large size and very active bus stations. Nearby development isn't connected to the corridor by sidewalks, and the grocery store is a sea of parking and little to no connection between the front door and the sidewalk. Closer to where I'm at right now, here at the Metro Center, it's the main intermodal facility in Northwest Indiana. But it's also on a high-speed truck route. And there is the bare minimum of pedestrian striping, and that's a block away at Broadway. So you've got people crossing the street between here, the courthouse, and Genesis Plaza with no identified crossing. It's also the trailhead for the Gary Green League. And we've got parks, but there's limited pedestrian accessibility. So what we decided to do is apply for a grant from the Indiana Department of Health. It's a tactical urbanism grant, and we got letters of support from the city of Gary, from several philanthropic organizations, and from NERC. Our target populations, they are legion. Transit riders, obviously we're a transit company. However, every transit rider is a pedestrian twice. If I say that one more time, I know people will kill me, but it's the truth. Okay. Children, we've got, as you saw, several schools in the vicinity. We've got several senior buildings in the vicinity. There, up until a couple of years ago, were no wheelchair ramps at the intersections on the 900 block. Obviously, there are shoppers who are going grocery shopping, and there are visitors downtown. We're going to be making some improvements near the steel yard. So these are all the people that could be impacted by this project. Our goals, obviously crosswalks. We don't want people to die. We don't want people to have to navigate a wilderness of crossing at all times of day, both here at the Metro and at the 900 block. We want to improve infrastructure and facilities at our passenger facilities. You know, that includes maybe some bike racks, maybe some additional waste receptacles. We want to, in general, improve the pedestrian environment near the businesses that have made downtown Gary home. We also want to promote transit use and connectivity between those activity centers, the art installations, the bike trails, and our transit nodes. What we've done so far, earlier this year, because of COVID, we did not want to put everybody into a room and create a super spreader event. So we did a lot of social media polling, getting input on what people's preferences on where to prioritize the tactical urbanism improvement. And as you can see, most people thought the 900 block was the best place to make that investment. We're going to be doing both of those areas that we had in question. We also asked people to help us on the scope. in terms of other improvements that we can make using this program, either now or in the future. We also kind of did a proof of concept for the wayfinding project. We had a series of hikes here in Gary this summer. We're going to be repeating next year that we call Transit to Trails. And even though most of those hikes were in connecting transit to natural resources like the Miller Woods, the Little Calumet River Trail, we had a very well attended urban hike downtown where we actually had a guided tour of these art and historical locations here downtown. We had rangers coming with us. It was narrated by Erin Cheryl Hayes from Purdue Extension, because this is a fitness and activity improvement. And it was basically a proof of concept for the wayfinding trail that we're going to be actually installing. And yes, the art trail. We haven't named it yet, but we've already identified the art installations and historical buildings downtown that we're going to be highlighting as connections to the Metro Center and to our other stops in downtown. They range from multi-story artwork on the two parking garages here downtown, sculptures here at the Metro Center, the two sculptures outside of City Hall, installations on buildings across from the Steel Yard, the Art House. It's called the Art House because it is a living, I mean, not a living, but it's a literal art installation as well as a building. And this is about a 2-mile trail connecting all of these locations and providing a single source of activity that hits all of those locations. And obviously the crosswalks. We are in the midst, like I said, of a call for artists. We dropped it last week. We've been hitting social media on it. There's been some great coverage in traditional media. Depending on the improvements that are submitted by artists, we could either make those improvements this fall or spring of next year. You can see the budgets there. We're looking at about $10,000 at a maximum for the wayfinding, the art trail, and the crosswalks are about $16,000. We're going to be matching the DOH money with federal dollars.
Where is the call for artists located so I can share it?
I will put that in the chat box. It is, and also I'm going to put the Google map of the fitness trail in the chat box if anyone wants to follow its development. It's on the news page of our GaryTransit.com website, but I will put the specific link in the chat box. We've got two significant next steps to finish things up. One, of course, is assessment. The DOH wants to know what kind of impact these projects are going to have on the environment. Speed reduction, reduction in accidents, increased pedestrian traffic, either from transit locations or even, the impact it could have on, from improvements that are going to be near the Steel Yard, because we're hitting two additional locations in addition to Metro and the 900 block of Broadway. One is connecting Gateway Park on the north end of downtown to Union Station. And we're also requesting proposals for the street intersections between Broadway and the Steel Yard. There is a bus stop at 5th and Broadway, and there are parking lots for the Railcat Stadium along that route. So we want to connect the Steel Yard to Broadway and to the rest of downtown. Lastly, duplication. This is a laboratory. This is kind of a proof of concept. We want to see if there is a market for more tactical urbanism in the future of our system. There are going to be areas, and there are areas where there's continued conflict between transit and other modes. The map here shows, based on our mobile app usage, this is where people are getting on buses throughout Northwest Indiana. They're all over. There are concentrations downtown along the US 30 corridor, downtown Hammond, Midtown, University Park, and North Maryville. Not all of these locations are pedestrian friendly. And some of these locations don't have crosswalks. There is the potential for using these same improvements in other locations, either funded by those communities, by philanthropic or community organizations or the like. And we want to show people that these improvements can make a difference. So like I said, this is hopefully the first of several, improvements like this. And I think that is it. That's my contact information. As I said, I'm going to link the call to artists in the chat box. I'm also going to link the Google map that we created for the fitness trail. You're muted, Mitch.
Of course I am. My turn to go through that. Oh, geez. Before we open it up for questions, and thank you for catching that, David.
No problem.
I do appreciate David taking the time to share this exciting project with us. It's great to see such activity from, an agency such as GPTC, which has been really at the cutting edge of just great, connective planning, understanding that we're pedestrians on both ends of the trip. And that, we're trying to kind of promote that with our bicycle and pedestrian in general. I think the whole idea is to try to make our homes our trailheads, and in a way where we can either access, the region either by foot or by bike, or to access transit easily by foot or by bike, and then getting to larger areas of the region. And I think we all want to be there. So thank you again, David, for that. It'd be great to just follow you along and bring you back here for updates and see how that's progressing for assessment purposes. So enough of me. Anybody want to?
Thank you, David.
Yeah, anyone
No
want
problem.
Great information.
Any questions for David? And don't forget, you could be muted. In fact, everyone is muted. So keep that in mind.
All right.
I think it looks like a great program. I was at the art house the day the little tour came through
Oh, goodness.
with everybody. We had a farmer's market going on.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, so it was really nice. They had a nice little group.
Yeah, I actually came back with my my wife and my 1.5-year-old, and we had ice cream.
Oh, that's right. DK Devils had their event that day.
Yes, yes. There was also some EDM music going on at the Steel Yard, which was weird. There was a weird soundtrack to it, but hey, a lively downtown is a great downtown.
It was a good feel that day,
Yes,
definitely.
it was. Yes, it was. I should also add, Mitch, that since all of our buses have bike racks,
Mhm.
the Transit to Trails initiative is kind of to expand the reach of cycling and transit, because you can trip chain, putting a bike on a bus and getting to a bike trail. And that's something we want to promote in the future. And if we can, either through DIY methods or a micro transit contract, actually have bike share in Northwest Indiana, our being a part of that would benefit both cyclists and transit users.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. And before we dive off, I know Donna's made a couple comments. Donna's from the Legacy Foundation, and they've been a great partner with the city of Gary and just in trails and non-motorized work in general. I'm working with them right now on a signage project for trails in Lake County. And
Yeah, and I'm thinking David's project might be that grant is open right now is for Transform Lake County. So I think that you might want to take a look at that, David.
I'm opening that tab as we speak.
I smell money.
You have me
Yeah,
at
you can
money.
get up
You have me
to-
at money.
I think you can get up to 25,000.
Okay. All
my.
right. It's not just COVID relief now. It's opened up.
No, it's opened up, and I believe also, since you're in Gary, you might want to look at the Knight Foundation money too.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. I will do that. That may be another tab. I did put the Google link for the fitness trail in the chat box, and I'm about to put in the call for artists.
That's perfect. You're ahead of me. Thank you.
Right.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I think that takes care of pedal.
Wonderful. Let's move on to paddle.
Paddle, are there anyone here from Nipwa?
Hi, Mitch. This is Rob.
Hey, Rob, go ahead.
Great. And I appear to be unmuted. That was a good test of that. So, Mitch, you've got the full text of a report, but perhaps for this format, I'll just go through and summarize the highlights of what the Northwest Indiana Paddle Association has been doing since the last time you guys met.
Thank
So
you.
first, let me start with the resumption of our activities. I think the Paddle Association, like everybody else in the call, has been occupied in 2021 with how do we ramp up after the worst of the pandemic, we hope. And I'm happy to say that all of our core activities, we have been able to ramp up with some changes to them. As of this coming Sunday, we will have held 5 events, a few that's somewhat fewer than we normally do in a year, but every one of them has been essentially sold out. We've had 2 on-water training sessions, which is also part of our mission. And we submitted and were approved by DNR to remove 2 log jams, or to remove many log jams on both Trail Creek and the East Branch of the Little Calumet this year. And we've been able to keep both of those open all summer with a few obstructions that we were able to jump on quite a year. So we have, I'm proud to say, we have cautiously but effectively resumed our core activities, somewhat controlling the way we do them because of having to follow protocols. But we've touched a lot of bases and a lot of people have enjoyed it. So we're very happy about that. With regard to Blue Way's awareness, complementing the work that NERC does with the maps and Indiana Dunes tourism. Those of you who were on the meeting last time heard Dan report about the Paddle Association launching a new website. It's very attractive. We've seen lots of traffic growing, lots of comment from it. It's getting used a lot. Since we launched it, we've added more waterways in the region to the website. We've also introduced a new page that gives visitors information about current river conditions. This is an interesting partnership with the National Park System, which has a volunteer program called River Scouts. So we get up-to-date reports from them on the various rivers, and then we post that as it comes along. And that's also been very useful. You can not only know where to get in the rivers, but you can also get some inkling of what's going on there. One thing I will share a little concern about, we learned that the Kankakee Water Trail website, which is something was privately developed, but is hosted or is used by, it's not hosted, it's linked to from the Indiana Dunes Tourism, it's linked to from the NWIPA website and probably for others. It's going to be decommissioned because the guy who's paying the bills is moving on. NWIPA is considering taking on that responsibility. We're pretty sure we have the chops and the bandwidth to do it. The hassle is going to be finding the funding because it's hosted on ArcGIS, which is those of you who are familiar with it know it's a pretty pricey platform. So scratching our head thinking about where the money is going to come from. But I will say that it's been really nice to see that as we've ramped up our activities, these different awareness programs have really been pretty effective. I will say that, of course, the website is where we put most of our work into. We're still using Facebook, and it's very effective, although we have to put up with the issues with Facebook that everybody else is. Looking at expanding to some other media. And not in the report, but I'll mention this, next month, we hope to, in collaboration with Shirley Hines and Save the Dunes, have signage put up along the Little Calumet. That's a program that we're planning with a scope of including the entire length of the Little Calumet from the lakefront back to the Heron Rookery. So that's awareness. We're getting a lot of awareness. Finally, Blue Way's development. So I mentioned that this year, we had permits from the DNR to not only do the Little Calumet, but to do clearing on Trail Creek in Michigan City. So that's the first time we've expanded. We are looking to expand that activity also downstream on the Little Calumet. We'd like to open it up eventually all the way to the lakefront. And we're also looking at doing it upstream all the way to Heron Rookery. So we're working with the National Park System and Porter County in that. And that's an aspiration of ours. We've made a little bit of progress this year. For the first time, we held an event in the sort of the final 4 miles from the lakefront back to Salt Creek. We've also, we're making plans now and tracking what's going on Salt Creek and Deep River, because next year we anticipate perhaps putting in permits to keep all of those clear. I'll also mention that we're watching Deep River with some concern. A recent Army Corps of Engineers project that completed on Deep River has lowered the river in several stretches, and we're concerned about that's effect on ability to paddle. So that's something we're watching closely. But in the meantime, we are providing information about it as part of our program there. We've also initiated a discussion facilitated and brokered by Purdue University Extension about the possibility of programs and site development along the Little Calumet West branch. And the idea is to reach populations that have not had access to water recreation opportunities within that watershed. We're still in very exploratory discussions, but we're really excited about this expansion to other populations. So stay tuned for something about that. And I think the last thing I'll mention, our work with, let's see what I want to say. This is a long one. Oh, I guess with Shirley Hines, I'll just call attention, because this is NERC and because this is PED and pedestrian, everything else. With Shirley Hines, we're working, especially in the East Branch watershed, while they're protecting the ecosystem. They're a good partner of ours to help us keep the blue waste together. And we're looking at areas, especially in the Porter municipal area, where we can have blue ways and new greenways, new pedestrian ways put in. They've put in some miles already, working with the town of Porter. And we are now planning a joint development project for adding a boat launch and new hiking trails adjacent to the river when the Waverly Road Bridge is replaced, which is coming up in the next year or so. So lots of activities spanning our scope and activities. And I have to say, we're happy and relieved to be back working again with COVID, as I'm sure the rest of you are. And Mitch, you are on mute.
All right, thank you, Rob. I got muted. Any questions for Rob and our hardy paddlers?
All right, that takes us to grab bag.
Yes, it does. I have a video to show. It's about 5 minutes or so, but it is National Bike to School Month, and actually yesterday was National Bike to School Day. We as a preface to this video, this is kind of the diamond version of where we'd like to see this program emerge to in this region, where people do this, children do this every day. It's just not a 1 day a year or 1 month a year thing, but it's actually a lifestyle that we can employ children and their parents to do on a daily basis. And this is how it's done in the city of Portland, Oregon, where of course there's a lot of great bike and ped stories to share. But I'm going to play this. Well, let me get back out of there because I didn't do this right. I'm going to share this video. I think everything's optimized very good. And hopefully you'll take something from it.
Portland Safe Routes to School currently serves over 80 schools and 35,000 students. We've had a lot of success at encouraging people to walk and bike to school. Matter of fact, in Portland right now, 10% of kids bicycle to school. That's compared to 1% nationally. And 32% walk to school, and that's compared to 11% nationally. We're really proud that since 2006, we've had about a 25% increase in the amount of kids walking and biking to school in Portland.
We have 4 children who are very small, and we really want to raise them in an active lifestyle. So Portland offers the opportunity to bike and walk in so many different places and ways, and it's supported by families in the communities.
We've found that we really enjoy walking to school. It gives us a little more time together and in fresh air.
We purposely picked a house that was 7 blocks from school because that was important to us, was walking or biking to school with the kids.
It sets the day right, especially if we're having a crazy hectic morning. Biking to school is a way to turn those frowns upside down.
Biking and walking to school is something that we heavily support. We're in over 80 elementary schools. That's all of them in the entire city. We do programs for second graders and fifth graders around pedestrian safety and bicycle safety. We do amazing placemaking in communities and installing art in communities, and it just is part of making an outdoor living space. It lets people become actively engaged in the right-of-way and allows it to become personal to them.
You know, we have a great neighborhood greenway network that provides for low traffic, low speed streets. And so often they're both on their own bikes, and it just makes riding comfortable, convenient, and safe.
Neighborhood greenways are a physical manifestation of safe routes to school. We make sure that we're now 65 miles of 20-mile-an-hour streets that are serving schools, and one of the big reasons that in Portland we have so many kids walking and biking to school. We used a lot of islands to help people get across busy streets, curb extensions to shorten the amount of crossing distance, and to make sure that pedestrians can see and be seen as they're getting ready to cross. We also built a lot of green features to manage stormwater in a sustainable fashion. We've gone so far in our network now that we've turned a street into a park, another street into a multi-use path that connects a school and a playground, and doing everything we can to really think about the public space in Portland's residential neighborhoods as being about more than just moving people around.
Good morning. Morning. Well, we love riding. We live really close to school, so we're either biking or walking.
The bike train's become sort of a tradition at Sabin that was handed off to me last year. Like even hanging out on the corner at 20th and going, they see in 5 minutes probably 50 cyclists ride by. So it just becomes part of their consciousness that one of the ways you get places is on your bike, and they show up to school, they lock up, they turn off their lights, and it shows them how to be responsible.
We try and work on a little bit of skills along the way about calling when there's cars in front, cars in back, making sure we're stopping at the stop signs.
You did a good job, Arthur. You got shoes, socks, backpack.
So the part I like about walking over biking, since we're so close, is it does give us a chance to get the blood going and get ready for a day and chat. When we're biking, it's so fast that it's over, and I think actually the kids are a little bit perkier when they get to school.
That's how you usually sit.
Getting ready in the morning is probably the trickiest part of it. We've got, you know, the breakfast, the getting dressed and all that. Getting geared up a little bit adds definitely another 10 or 15 minutes to it. But to be able to get a little bit of fresh air before we're here makes all the difference in the day. So much so that I'm willing to carry the 120 odd pounds of kids down the hill on the back of the extra cycle. It's well worth it.
The kids love it. They are so excited being able to ride on the city's greenways and give them the opportunity to use that kind of space in a really safe environment, allowed them to learn how to ride a bike without training wheels, which is amazing.
So in Portland, school police train fifth graders to be safety patrol. They learn how to make it so that they're seen with their bright vests and flags and help kids that are arriving to school with their families safely cross the street.
The vast majority of our student population walks and bikes to class and to school, and it's a great thing because for us, you know, it's just more activity for them. After school, being able to walk home, and some of them up to 1.5 miles, it's a good activity to and from school. Helps keep them engaged and active in school. A lot of times, if you see kids get dropped off, they're kind of like, and kids that walk to school, they've already started the motor, so they come to school and tend to be pretty ready to learn.
First started coming to this school, Llewellyn Elementary, there was one set of bike racks in the back, and it has since grown to so many more bike racks, another section of bike racks in the back and bike racks in the front, but you still see people walking their bikes to poles, putting them under stairwells. It's just bikes everywhere.
There's other dads, we don't have kids in the same grade, but we work downtown, so it's nice to be able to ride, and I've met people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. We have kids at the same school, so it's a nice way to meet other people.
Part of the Portland value and culture in the community here is that we really want to capture kids when they're young, so it becomes a part of their lifestyle as they grow up, and it really adds to the culture and social fabric that you see in Portland.
It's much better than when we have to pile into the car. Everyone's real grumpy, nobody wants to put their seatbelt on, and we're usually late.
You think that's funny?
All right. All right, there's that. Thank you for listening. Just as kind of, I think the video does a great job in providing the overview of the importance of safe routes to school policies. And again, what I want to emphasize is the amount of work that needs to be done at the school level for this. I know we don't really have school people on the phone, but we have municipal representatives that do know people in school districts, and you have to pretty much work with each school individually on these programs. Sometimes you might get lucky and actually have a school district work with you holistically, but usually it's principal by principal. They kind of own. I kind of saw that when I was working at my community level, and it was like little kingdoms everywhere. So you had to kind of work with them, and some principals are more interested in others, but there are just a number of schools throughout the entire region, and there's so many opportunities for this to happen. So again, in Portland, you're seeing this being done every day. And what that does is obviously it reduces the amount of children being dropped off and picked up at school, which of course increases the number of traffic. In fact, 20% of all morning traffic are just kids getting dropped off to school. I mean, it's just amazing how many, and you ever go to a school in the morning and the afternoon, you'll know what I mean. That cars are backed up all the way. So that reduces the amount of buses that are necessary to bring kids in and out of school. So that does save on some costs as well. So many great benefits, and of course the health benefits and the social benefits and all of that, and just instilling lifelong healthy habits. So there you go. We're in the middle of the month now, and there are great resources. Google it, Google Safe Routes to School, and you'll go to several great resources. Walktober is one of the words that are being used right now as well, to kind of encourage more walking and biking to school. So with that said, I know you're still there, Andrew. I think.
Yes.
I'll just move on, if you don't mind, through the grab bag. The next thing on the agenda, I think we have some project updates, and I'm going to share the screen again and embarrass somebody here. So hold on a second. Before I do, I got to get rid of this video. But yeah, that's great. Let me go get to this screen and then properly embarrass this person. Maybe not. But you'll see a photo here of Shannon Eason, with Michigan City Parks, proudly cutting the ribbon on the first 2 phases of the Singing Sands Trail, and that was just last Saturday. And I'm going to give you a moment to talk here, Shannon, in a minute, but these are images that we have on our Greenways and Blueways of Northwest Indiana Facebook page. If you don't like it, please like it. But that's really where we kind of update people on what's happening throughout the region. We had Mayor Perry there opening up the event, and there's another picture of the mayor. We had, I believe, who is this individual? It's your park
board president, Phil Latchford.
Yep, he was there as well. You can see Shannon off to the left there. Moving on, we had Frank Mervan, our esteemed congressman, show up and say a few kind words as well. And he's a big fan of non-motorized transportation, and some great pictures as well. I like how it is, how long it gets. He had 2 breweries. In fact, we were kind of equidistant from 2 breweries. This one, the Shoreline Brewery and Zorn Breweries, and they had some nice funny anecdotes about that as well. And there's the ribbon cutting. Anything you want to add to your great event, Shannon?
No, I'm glad we finally got here and ready to work on phase 3, Mitch.
Yes, we are. And I'll be talking to Shannon quite closely about some of the next level trails to finish phase 3. Phase 3 is our largest phase, about 5 miles. So they opened up 4 miles of trail, and they still have about 5 miles left. So it gives you an understanding of the breadth of this project, but it is a major link in the Marquette Greenway network. So just extremely proud on so many fronts to see this done, and amazing work. Shannon has been working. This project was first programmed in 2003. So talk about patience. And there's been one drama after another. Shannon's been there for most of them, and I've been alongside Shannon talking about that and other colorful metaphors for the last few years regarding this project. But just again, a matter of perseverance, working with amazing people like Shannon over the years, and also the engineering group, Butler Fairman, involved from the start. So congratulations to all in Michigan City for that tremendous accomplishment. So while we're on the matter of projects, anybody else want to talk about any project updates that they want to brag about while we are on the subject? And don't forget, you may be on mute. In fact, you are. At this point, I do want to bring, I didn't mean to overlook you, Don. I know you're there. Did you want to mention anything else on behalf of South Shore Trails while we still have the meeting going on here?
Mitch, I was sitting here thinking about how I seem to be sliding comfortably into the role of cranky old guy as time goes by, because the one comment I have in addition to what I said in the chat is that as I was watching the video on safe routes to school, and mind you, I loved every bit of it, but the one caveat I couldn't help but come up with was that looked like a fairly moderately dense, older urban neighborhood, and that these programs end up operating differently. In some respects, they operate exactly the same, but in other key respects, if you have a more suburban, more spread out neighborhood, it can be more of a challenge to do safe routes to school, especially bike to school or walk to school day programs. And so you just need to be cognizant of that if you want to try to put them into place. At the same time, I'm absolutely all for them, but they don't necessarily work the same way as they do in this Portland neighborhood, which God bless them.
Yeah, I think you've successfully slid in the cranky old man territory, but that's
Thank you very much.
No, we forget. No, actually, you bring up an amazing point, and it's a fabulous point, because let me just double back on his comment here. Yes, they are going to work differently in geographic context. And when there was a Safe Routes to School Day plan many years ago when I was in Crown Point, for those kids that are outside of the 1 mile radius, they had a central drop-off zone where they could come and walk in from that point. So everyone got involved because, you know, obviously within about a half mile of the school, that's pretty readily accessible, even a mile out. But there's a lot of kids that were 2-3 miles away from the school, and they're sitting there going, what are we going to do? And say, well, why don't you show up to this location? It was a city park. Show up there, get dropped off, and we'll all walk in at the same time. And so it just worked out great for everybody. And it was amazing to see one empty school bus after another show up to, you know, they're doing their routes, you know, they're being paid for it. And there's no one on the bus. It was a very surreal and very satisfying day. But thank you for bringing that up, Don.
Well, and you raise another good point, which is that, you know, if it really is important to get school districts to sit up and take notice, especially if you find that you put the kind of program together that you can make work on an ongoing basis, because then it becomes an issue of the school district really needs to sit down and say, okay, can we maybe revamp our bus routes to save a little money, because the number of kids that we have walking or riding their bike to school on an ongoing basis is consistently up. Yep. So we no longer have to plan for the same amount of busing that we were doing before. So there's that as well.
Yep,
I would just add one thing that doesn't have anything to do with this present conversation, but for those of you that don't know it and know who I'm talking about, Bob Huffman, who is one of the founders of our group, has had major back surgery in the hospital. He's going to be laid up for some time. He seems to be doing okay, but it was really very serious and very major surgery. And so if you were not aware of this and know Bob and would like to send him a card, a get well, an encouragement, I'm sure that would be appreciated. Both Mitch and I have Bob's address, so get in touch with either one of us and we can provide that to you.
I really appreciate that. And I actually saw Bob last night at the hospital, and he is recovering. His wits are all about him. His body needs to catch up to it, but he's definitely on the mend. So thank you for that interjection, Don. Any other project updates? If not any project updates, are there any event announcements to share with the group? Again, you are on mute. And there's Andrew. Okay, so let me go back to the agenda here, Andrew, so you can finish up the meeting. And let me go there and share it with everybody. And I think we are down there at part 7.
Splendid. So our next meeting will be Thursday, January 6th. Thank you, Mitch, and the team for everything that you do to make this committee successful and informative. And I'm sorry we went a little bit long today when we want to be mindful of all of your time. So with that, if there's nothing else, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't forget, you're muted.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Donna.
Second.
Okay, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Have a
Mr.
nice
Chairman.
week.
Thanks.